4.1 is almost here, and I have never been this excited about an update, and more specifically about the story. It looks like the Archon quest is gonna be absolutely wild, and I am all here for it. I'm so excited about what's gonna happen that I don't even care about those 20 anniversary wishes rewards thingy wingies. They could give me 20 primos and I would be happy with that. I'm kidding, whoever's, give me the 20 pulls, thank you. But yes, so what's gonna happen in 4.1? Childe will pull out his massive whale, Neuvillette will pull out his massive water laser beam, and they're gonna fight to the death, while we seduce Arlecchino and we leave Furina to cry under the fountain. I'm just kidding. This video is gonna have some crazy theories and potentially some huge lore drops if they turn out to be true up ahead, so be prepared for that. But hello everyone, I'm Valeria Hawthorn, and in this video I'll do my best to analyze the 4.1 trailer, present everything or mostly everything that we know so far, and try and put all the pieces together and predict and theorize as to what's gonna happen. I hope you enjoyed the video. Now, before we dive into what's gonna happen in 4.1, let me quickly refresh your memory as to what happened at the end of the Archon quest in 4.0. Childe got falsely accused of being the one behind the disappearances of young women, but with the power of friendship and Navia on our side, we managed to reveal the true culprit behind that, and ya boy Vache got sentenced. And woohoo! We all thought that's it, happy end, we can go home now. But wait, there's more. Since charges were already pressed against Childe, he still had to stand trial, and everyone was convinced that he's gonna be innocent, everything would be good, but no. The Oratrice deemed him guilty, and he wasn't buying any of that. He was about to go wild until Neuvillette stepped on him. God, I wish that was me. And as a result of him being guilty, he got sent to the ranch. To the Fortress of Meropide, I mean. So this is where we are currently at. A Fatui Harbinger being arrested in Fontaine is a big deal, so our father, Arlecchino, will pay a visit to Neuvillette and Furina to discuss this whole ordeal and try and find a solution. But apparently all of her suggestions got turned down, as we learned from the 4.1 live stream. But in the end, Neuvillette compromised and agreed to send someone in the fortress to check upon Childe and maybe investigate some other things along the way. And who is that someone gonna be? Of course it's us, the traveler, it's always us. In order to send us there, he had to find a little something to falsely convict us for. And there we have it. We are now currently in the Fortress of Meropide, and we have a lot of stuff to do. So let's begin with the fortress. In the 4.1 special program, we learned that the fortress does not fall under the jurisdiction of Fontaine's legal system, and instead exists as its own autonomous entity. It's described as not just a prison, but a gathering place for exiles, so much so that even after finishing their sentences, some people don't even want to leave the fortress. I mean, can we blame them? Who's gonna want to leave the fortress when you have the whole Wriothesley patisserie over there? The man is packing the whole bakery behind, like, come on. Now, who is Wriothesley? He is the Duke of the Fortress of Meropide, and after he took that position, he carried out a bunch of reforms and changed how the place operates. And apparently it's so nice that people don't want to leave. Understandable, have a great day. But this makes me question, is checking upon Childe really the only reason why we'd infiltrate the fortress? Or is there something else happening there that Neuvillette wants us to investigate? Did they perhaps come to the conclusion that there's no way of getting him out after the Oratrice deemed him guilty, and they're gonna have to figure out a different way to get him out? Or that is gonna be more complicated and take more time? I don't know, we're gonna find out. But they did also mention that we're gonna have to investigate a series of incidents alongside locating Childe. And for that, we're gonna receive help from old friends as well as encounter new people. The new people are Wriothesley, the Duke of the Fortress, and Sigewinne, the head nurse. But who are these old friends gonna be? Who else is in the fortress? Now, we can also expect that Lini, Lynette, and Fremine will also play a part in this, but are they considered old friends? Are they new friends? If they are new friends, then who is the old friend? I have so many questions. Who could possibly be there? Imagine the Torre shows up and we're like, hey bestie, I don't know. We also learned that the Fatui already had their own informants inside, but all of them vanished without a trace, and we're gonna come back to that in a second. But as I already mentioned, we can expect Lini, Lynette, and Fremine to play a role in this too, since Lini mentioned at one point that Wriothesley has a plan, and then later on we hear him being distressed, asking him where he took his siblings. What is Wriothesley gonna do to his siblings? We do see see Furina sinking in the water. Why is that boy always drowning? I thought he was a professional diver. What's going on? Is someone gonna try and dissolve them? I don't think that would be the case, but who can we even trust at this point? I don't know. So this brings me to the next important detail. At some point in the trailer, we can see Wriothesley running away from what seems to be water from the Primordial Sea. Now, the Primordial Sea is speculated to have been somewhere in the territory of Fontaine, and with the fortress being located underwater, could the Primordial Sea potentially be located somewhere beneath the fortress, or do they just have access to the water from within there? At one point, we hear someone saying that they have other ways to dispose of people and keep them in the fortress forever, which makes me believe that they've known about the water's existence all along and have been using it to dispose of people. And with the fortress being its own separate entity from Fontaine, it would make sense as to why no one from the outside knew about the water's effects, and they were all surprised when they learned that people can get dissolved. Someone also mentions there being strange noises at night, specifically coming from some pipes. Perhaps those are the voices of the people who have been dissolved by the water, the same way we could hear the voices of the missing girls who were dissolved by Vacher, and how we can hear Furina's voice in the fountain at night.
So interminable. So lonely. Just how much longer?
But why did the water from the Primordial Sea suddenly start flooding the entire place? Now, we still have to remember that for whatever reason, the Oratrice deemed Childe guilty and he's somewhere inside the fortress and does not have his vision. This will all make sense in a second. He told us that years ago, when he was 14, he fell into an abyss and got trained by a mysterious girl called Skirk. She told him that she agreed to take him as her apprentice because he awakened it, and traces of it remained on him. Now, what could it possibly refer to? Childe believes it's related to a dream of his where he saw a massive whale, and the whale attack he uses during his boss fight is inspired by that massive whale. But we'll come to that in a second. What is Childe even doing in Fontaine in the first place? He did mention that he has been feeling uneasy, he's in a bad mood, which is very unusual for a child, and that he feels that some kind of restless power has started to stir inside of him. And we also his visions starting to act up, and it stopped working for a moment, which is why he decided to give it to us, because he was like, nah, this is useless, I can't rely on this. And now, let's go back to 1.0, where Dvalin was going wild because he was corrupted by the Abyss, and at the beginning of the quest we brought one of Dvalin's tears to the Knights of Favonius to try and figure out what the hell that thing was. And just being near the crystal caused Lisa to feel pain, to which she said that the crystal reacted to visions, and that the impurities in the crystal and the elemental energies people with visions embody repel each other. Now let's go back 2 steps. He fell into an unknown abyss and awakened it, and he has traces of it on himself. There is a strange power stirring inside him and his vision stopped working. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? The abyssal power inside of Childe is probably growing stronger, which is why his vision stopped working, because the powers repel each other. So this whale is most likely an abyssal creature from that abyss Childe fell in and is likely connected to the Primordial Sea. And if that's the case, then the Oratrice's judgment wouldn't have been false, because technically, if Childe has the same powers that the Primordial Sea has, and they accuse him of the disappearances, not him kidnapping them, murdering them, or anything like that, then in one way or another, he is guilty for their disappearances. Does this make sense? Probably no. Anyways, and also, going back to that whale, during the very first Fontaine teaser, there is another scene with Furina underwater, and we can see a big shadow approaching him. Then Furina suddenly opens his eyes, he looks rather shocked, and he's gasping for air. So could that big shadow be the whale we are talking about? We also see him struggling to swim in 4.1 as well. So what's gonna happen? Is this massive whale suddenly gonna take over Childe and cause the waters of the Primordial Sea to suddenly start gushing through the entire fortress? Or is Childe just gonna unleash his massive whale and flood the entire place? Or is it gonna be something completely different and unrelated? But going back to the scene of Wriothesley running away from said water, it looks like the fortress is about to get flooded. They're trying to close some of it off to stop the waters from flooding the entire place, and towards the end of the trailer we see Neuvillette being inside the fortress as well and trying to somehow prevent this catastrophe, I guess, by perhaps either absorbing, pushing back, sealing off the water, or just doing something to stop this disaster. And now I'm gonna go on a bit of of a tangent and talk a bit more about Neuvillette's potential lore and what might happen to him in the future. And so far, it looks like he really is the Hydro Dragon. I recently made several shorts covering the topic, but I'll try to summarize them here for you, in case you've missed some of these details and you needed further convincing. Now, there's a legend in Enconomia saying that the Dragon of Water will be born in human form. Furthermore, throughout the 4.0 Archon quest, he refers to others as humans, and in the 4.1 trailer, Hoyoverse pretty much confirmed that he's not human. He mentions how he doesn't understand human emotions, and we hear a voice that sounds a lot like Furina, I'll get to that in a second, that tells him that he'll see much in the human world. And there's also a riddle in the Byakuya Koku collection that goes as follows: what walks on 4 feet in the early morning, 2 feet during the day, and 3 feet at night? The answer to that being a bishop who transforms into a person to attend a ball, then breaks one of its legs and eventually ends up walking with a cane. And who else has a cane? That's right, Neuvillette. Then there's also the fact that people often compare travelers' skills to those of the archons, but a theory that not a lot of people often mention is that travelers' skills instead mimic those of the dragons. For Anemo, we have the tornado skill similar to Dvalin's abilities. With Geo, we push enemies back similar to Ageda's stomps. For Electro, well, Orobashi is dead, we don't have a dragon, we wouldn't know. Dendro looks similar to the inside of Apep, and Hydro Traveler has a water gun that looks like an adorable smaller version of Neuvillette's massive water beam. And they also make balls. And now, with that out of the way, we can assume that Neuvillette is the Hydro Dragon, pretty certain. But there's one other detail about him that was heavily emphasized on in his character teaser. It caught my attention the first time he got revealed, and now after seeing the character teaser put so much emphasis on it, something is starting to look very suspicious. Is a tear-shaped jade stone on his collar, and there's also one on his back, and they look very odd. Now, they're a beautiful blue color, but at the very top, we can see them being slightly red, and I don't know if this was just a design choice or if there's something else going on with that. And now, going back to Dvalin in 1.0, the tears he was crying were crimson red because he got tainted by the abyss, but the traveler managed to purify him. And way back during the cataclysm, the waters of Fontaine got tainted by the abyss, leading to tainted life forms and the inability of new oceanids to be born. So if the water from the Primordial Sea is also tainted, then when he tries to absorb it or fight it off, my guess is that he may end up getting corrupted as well, and at a later stage you'll have to fight him in order to purify him. I could be completely wrong. So yeah, I think he might be one of the weekly bosses in Fontaine. Also, especially since there's pretty much an established pattern of fighting a lot of dragons and harbingers. In Mondstadt, we fought Dvalin and Boreas. Now Boreas, we can ignore him. Then in Liyue, we went up against Agedaha and Childe, a harbinger. In Inazuma, we went up against another harbinger, Signora. And since there being no dragon there, the second best choice was the puppet. Then in Sumeru, we fought yet another dragon, Apep, or we fought something inside the dragon. Okay, I get it, no need to fight me in the comments. And another harbinger, Scaramouche. And now, who is in Fontaine? Neuvillette, the Hydro Dragon, and Arlecchino, a harbinger. We could be fighting someone else, but chances are these two may be weekly bosses. But perhaps none of that will happen, we won't have to fight him. There will be nothing wrong with him when he gets exposed to the waters of the Primordial Sea. He might just end up regaining all of his memories, because in his character teaser, he mentions that he doesn't know what's going on with him, why is he even here, just to suffer, what is the purpose of his long life, etc, etc. Which brings me to the next part. There is a voice we hear that sounds a lot like Furina, but again I'll get back to that in a second, that tells him that one day, when you have dwelt among humanity long enough, you will be placed to bring judgment over all as the spokesperson for Fontaine's past. And I had a bit of a wild theory here. I think Neuvillette might have to make the decision whether to dissolve everyone in Fontaine, to cleanse them from the sin, or instead save them. Now, there are several scenes where we see him walking around Fontaine and everything is grayed out, it's raining. That could either be some scenes from the past, especially because at some point we hear people saying how they don't trust the Melusines and Neuvillette as well. So it could be something that has already happened, or it could be something that will happen now, but it wouldn't make sense for people to suddenly get suspicious of the Melusines and Neuvillette. So, as a dragon, he too is probably against the heavenly principles and the archons since they stole their world from them, but perhaps the same way as Apep holds resentment but doesn't find a point in hurting Nahida and the people of Sumeru, Neuvillette too will do his best to keep them safe and stop the water from flooding everything. And I'm guessing that he, once Kira gains his full power and memories, he's gonna be the one personally delivering justice from here on out, and they will stop using the oratories for trials. That's what I'm guessing. And going back to that voice line, the voice sounds a lot like Furina, is the same voice actor from what I can tell both in English and Japanese, but it's not the Furina we know now. It sounds like a calmer, gentler and wiser version of her.
You will see much in the human world, from the delightful to the depressing. And one day, when you have dwelt among humanity long enough, you will be placed to bring judgment over all as a spokesperson for Fontaine's past.
And all throughout the trials in 4.0, we see a shadow of Furina right beside her. Is that a twin? Is that part of her consciousness? I don't know for certain. Now, there will be some spoilers for the Narcissenkreuz quest up ahead, so feel free to skip to this timestamp to avoid them. I believe that the Furina we see now is just like the little Oceanid Anne who was created from Marianne's memory/consciousness. And the real, or rather original Furina is most likely sealed inside of the oratories, since she's the one who created it, so it would make sense that she's the core that powers it, and my guess is that the Gnosis is also inside there, in the oratory somewhere. And during the 4.0 Archon quest, if you remember, Lini also mentioned that when he was going to investigate the oratories, he heard a voice that seemed to recognize him, and he thought that was unusual and that he should be the only one in the room, so he didn't even go inside to investigate. The voice tried to speak to him, but the fact that he mentioned that he heard a voice and didn't specify whose it was, it means that he couldn't recognize it, so chances are it might have been the same voice we hear of the gentler, wiser Furina. Him and Lynette were tasked with figuring out how the oratories operate. With Arlecchino herself being originally from Fontaine, they want to learn all about Fontaine's secrets in order to stop the prophecy from happening. Arlecchino is concerned with Fontaine's future and judges Furina for failing to take action. At some point we hear Furina crying, saying, "Who are you? Please don't kill me." And the way they structured the whole trailer and everything, whoever loves to do this, they love to mislead us with the trailer. They want us to believe that Arlecchino is going to attack Furina, but I don't think that's gonna be the case. We'll probably hear those lines from Arlecchino where she says that Furina has failed to take action. During the negotiations about Childe, she'll probably get fed up with Furina being so carefree and bratty and unbothered. That's my guess. But perhaps at the end of the quest they'll try to destroy the oratories or try to bring out the other part of Furina, so maybe that's why she's crying and thinking someone is going to kill her. Also, it does very much resemble the voice we hear under the fountain. Now, there being two Furinas would make sense, with Fontaine being heavily inspired by French culture, but not only French, also British and Greek. There have been a lot of heavy references to Christianity. The statues of the seven in Fontaine are holding what seems to be a sword, but it's also in the shape of a cross. Arlecchino is called Father, the same way priests are referred to, and she has other things going on for her as well, which I'll probably speak about in a separate dedicated video about Arlecchino. If you'd like to see that, do let me know down below. Additionally, Neuvillette was officially drip marketed with a Bible verse, "He who looks down on all that are haughty," which is about the Leviathan, a sea serpent. And that specific verse further proves that he will be bringing judgment upon everyone. The people in Fontaine being born with sin, same with Adam and Eve, so where am I going with the two Furinas? So far we have the previous Hydro Archon Egeria and potentially the two Archons or two versions of the current Archon Furina, which makes me think about the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit. The Father could be either Egeria or perhaps Neuvillette, since he delivers judgment upon all. The Son is the current Furina we've met so far, the one that's among the people, and the Holy Spirit being the Oratrice, since the Holy Spirit doesn't have a physical body, and the same way the Oratrice has a consciousness of its own and is able to deliver judgments accurately. And if Furina is the Son, it would make sense in the prophecy that she would be the only one left weeping on her throne, since she would be the only one that was born without sin. Now, is this prophecy even gonna happen? I don't know. Now, this may be a bit of a stretch and a bit of a wild theory, but in the lore of the Nymph's Dream artifact set, and more specifically in the Fell Dragon's monocle, I don't know if this is gonna be some kind of analogy to Neuvillette and Furina in the current state of Fontaine, but I found this particular part very interesting. It says that before the dragon falls into the chasm that dissolves all things, he will think of the times he once spent with the hero being the one who slayed him. And at last he will say, "Hatred shall not fill me. I know that you have not seen the sights I have, and that's why you wish to stop me. The star beast shall drink the amniotic fluid of the world dry. 100 years from there, all life on its surface shall be wiped away." And the whole star beast thing most likely references the abyss, and the literal name of the 4.1 patch is "To the stars shining in the depths." Again, stars, the depths, abyssal creatures in the depths, going back to that whale. And it continues like this: "I will surely return to save all souls. 10 years, even 100 years may pass, but I shall be reborn as a new universe." And again, this might be a bit of a stretch, but I think this line in particular refers to Neuvillette and that he's gonna save us from this potential prophecy and from the entire flood. And another detail that caught my attention was when Paimon mentioned there being a mysterious box and a bottle of crimson liquid. Again, these are gonna be some spoilers for the Melusine World Quest. The only crimson liquid I could think of was the paint that Ma Mère was using, that she was making from the clotted blood of the ancient beast Elinus. And Jacob tried to use that very same blood to revive the beast. So is it gonna be this crimson liquid or something else? I'm not sure, but I also mentioned that there's gonna be something bad happening on the third day at lunch. And going back to all the Christian references in Fontaine, the number 3 is very frequently mentioned in the Bible, and a lot of things happen on the third day. Jesus got resurrected on the third day. I don't think it's gonna be a reference to that, but there's also a story of Jonah, who, long story short, he was on a ship, there was a storm, people threw him off the ship, God sent a big whale to save him, and so Jonah spent 3 days inside the whale. And when we think back to Childe, who's inside the fortress and has this mysterious power stirring up inside of him, and he saw this massive whale in a dream when he was in the abyss, it could potentially refer to that whale finally awakening on the third day and taking over and causing the waters from the Primordial Sea to suddenly start flooding the entire fortress. But again, this is just speculation. As usual, Hoyoverse has left us with a lot more questions rather than answers, and hopefully at least some of them will get answered in the upcoming Archon quest. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. It's the first time I make a video like that, and if you'd want to see more in the future. Also, I will be playing through the Archon quest as soon as the new patch drops over on Twitch, so feel free to follow me there. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, as it helps me out a lot. Also, let me know what you guys think down below. Do you have any other theories as to what might happen? But yes, thank you all for watching. Have fun, take care, keep smiling, lots of love. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!